Hi there, Sam Kargus here. I'm a music designer and a composer, and today I want to talk about a concept known as musical stillness. This is a concept that I gleaned from Leading with Sound by Rob Bridget, and he talks about stillness in the sound effects section when referring to ambiances and Foley and whatnot as a way to serve as a substitute of silence. Because complete silence can often draw attention to itself. So, but today I want to talk about the music section in this book and the concept of musical stillness. So, musical stillness is devoid of any clear melody, thematic, usually percussive material. A lot of action cues are very bombastic, so that certainly wouldn't be an example of musical stillness. Musical stillness has a couple effects and a couple purposes. The first purpose would be to draw attention to other things in the game. So whether those elements are other sound effects, like in maybe something in the ambience that you want the player to actually notice, or whether that's other material, maybe it's a visual element in the scene that you want to draw attention to. This musical stillness acts as a type of wallpaper so that you don't at first you notice it, but after a while it starts to go out of your attention, but it still is setting an emotional mood for the particular scene that you're putting this in. It's most frequently going to be used in an ambient setting, somewhere in the map where you don't want heavily percussive elements and whatnot, like I was referring to before. Okay, so today I did a little example of musical stillness in FMOD here. So I will show you how that sounds. I'll play it a little bit and then I'll explain what's going on further in the video. So you can certainly hear how this type of ambient music would lend itself very well to noticing other aspects in your scene. Okay, so let's jump into this event here. I just have this set up as like a separate FMOD event. So open that up. There's not too much going on here as far as actual musical material. It's just a couple chords on this track here. So I'll solo that. It's just like a chord swell. It's like a pad. A lot of the time we'll deal with like filters, like EQ filters within our DAW when we're doing music, when we're producing music. However, when we're actually designing these pad sounds in our game, it's best to export it from your DAW without those EQ filters, so you can apply those EQ filters, whether you're using FMOD or Wise, you can apply those EQ filters at runtime. So you're going to be able, a little bit more processing power, just a tiny bit of CPU usage to get a lot more variations out of your pad sounds. So how I set that up in FMOD is I have a multi-band EQ here, and then I have a low pass filter as well as like a peaking EQ filter here, and then I have a couple of LFOs on both these frequencies, and also a LFO on the gain of this peaking band here. So this is what gives it like another layer of movement. So it's not just it's two chords oscillating back and forth without any variation. Okay, and then the other element is actually a scatterer I honestly just call this a scatter instrument. It's way too hard to say. So I just call it a scatter instrument. And this is a really good tool to use in with our concept of musical stillness. Because with a scatter instrument, you can actually, I have a bunch of like glitchy timpani effect sounds through like a crazy sound. Forget exactly what it was, but and then I have seven like little timpani licks that I exported, and then I shove them through this scatter instrument, and then it's nice because it kind of automates. It randomizes like a time interval to trigger all these samples. So it's perfect for our concept of musical stillness, because it will randomly trigger over the course of time, but not get too much in the way. It adds a lot of like little textural interest to this section. So, and those are the two elements in this event here. So let me show you the contrast. So I also did a high intensity, like a bombastic percussive action cue. So you can imagine if you were this musical stillness, this ambient music that I just played, is certainly more. It would be more for maybe an exploratory part of your level where maybe silence isn't cutting it in your music, and this kind of ambient music is a great tool to use actually to bridge between your heavy, bombastic, percussive action cues and your silence, right? Because you don't want to have music throughout the entire game, or else your music just becomes less effective and just becomes like a wallpaper, right? So you can use this concept of musical stillness to bridge between complete silence and then your, percussive action scenes, right? So let me show you how that sounds, and how and I'll play this, and then I'll trigger the action cue. So you can hear how, you can hear the contrast. So this musical stillness is really effective with a really high intensity, bombastic, heavy percussion. I got like a 16th note, pulsing synth through most of this, which is great for action cues. But you can hear the contrast and how effective that is. Let me trigger the action cue or the battle music one more time. This battle music would most likely be in a situation where maybe you're facing a couple enemies, maybe a boss battle. This would probably be pretty effective for that. Let me trigger it again. Here we go. And notice that silence before the musical stillness, the ambient music here, before it comes in. That silence. Anytime we write music, it's much more effective to write your music with with cadences, right? And the important aspect of a cadence is like an ending. So like there's almost like a pause or some silence in between your main whatever phrase you're ending, and then the next phrase, right? So that's silence. There's actually musical studies that have been done that shows that most brain activity, like the most thought you put towards a piece of music, is actually in the silences. So that little bit of silence at the end of this all this action music can really help the listener kind of process what they just experienced. So it's an important part of the musical journey. So, all right. So I hope you enjoyed this video on the concept of musical stillness. This has really helped me. When the first time I read this book, it was almost like an epiphany moment. I'm a percussionist, and I'm like classical music background, so I'm always thinking about themes, thematic material, and percussion and grooves and almost. So it was really helpful for me to really take this concept into and apply it to my more ambient music section. So, all right, until next time, take care.